From SBI's Executive Briefing Center in Dallas, Texas, the most watched and listened to content in B2B sales and marketing, it's the SBI Podcast with your host, Matt Shares.
Welcome to SBI TV, a weekly show dedicated to helping you make your number. Today we're going to discuss revenue attribution. Simply put, revenue attribution is the ability to trace each dollar of revenue back to the marketing or sales activity that originally sourced that opportunity. So why this topic? CEOs, CMOs, chief revenue officers, heads of sales all need to understand what sales and marketing activities are influencing a revenue booking. So once you can quantify the value of those activities, you can attribute revenue back to these activities that produce it, and you use those insights to guide your marketing and sales investments. My name is Matt Shares. I am the CEO of SBI. I am also your host. Joining me today in the studio is Sarah Kennedy. Sarah is the Chief Marketing Officer for Marketo. We're thrilled to have her here. So Sarah, welcome. Great to see you.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
You are rocking a much better blazer than I am. So I am sitting on the silver.
Bright.
Yeah, I'm on the silver medalist podium for fashion on my own show. But great to see you. So if you could maybe introduce yourself and Marketo to the audience, then we'll jump into the show.
Yeah, so I'm Sarah Kennedy. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Marketo, and I am currently now 6 months, almost exactly to the day, in the job as the Chief Marketing Officer there. But Marketo is the most powerful engagement platform in the world, and it's certainly for us just something that is the lifeblood of who we are, because I'm a marketer and I get to market to marketers every day, and that's really exciting.
Very nice. And it's interesting that, this word engagement and the way that you position that, because people might think of Marketo in the old marketing automation provider. And when it was a two-horse race, right, of Eloqua and Marketo, and you got its Coke or Pepsi. Yeah. And now it's really about this engagement platform. We're gonna talk about that, so I'm glad you're here, and it's a hot topic. So as Sarah and I have our debate, if you're watching or listening out there and you don't want to miss any of the other shows that we produce about 2 or 3 of these a week. If you're an iPhone user, you can just download the SBI app, and you can have access and notifications brought to you while you commute, while you travel, while you do CrossFit. You search for Sales Benchmark Index in the App Store, and you download it to your iPhone. So here we go. So, Sarah, easy layup question. You're like, yeah.
There's no such thing, is there?
Like, bullshit,
I don't know. We'll see.
So, how do you define revenue attribution?
Well, so actually, I'm gonna take you back to a Texas saying of "Who shot John" is actually what comes to mind when I think about revenue attribution often, right? But in fact, it's the debate of who sold John, and it's one of those that can always and often be this debate that you get interlocked in with the sales and marketing organizations. But at the end of the day, it's the simple basis of tracking from the point of influence to the point of cash. And I think when we look at that entire journey, it's one that there are so many different touch points and influencers along the way, but the communication and the alignment and the consistency that has to be established as the foundation with sales and marketing leadership is critical to success of any revenue attribution investment.
All right, so first big takeaway that I just got, influence to cash. People talk about quote to cash all the time. Influence to cash, because if you think about the way people procure services these days, nobody is waiting for sales to call them. They're going through their own engagement and their own set of touch points. So great takeaway right there, Sarah. So if we think about this revenue attribution value, and I'm going to pick on a couple of specific people that you have to work with all the time. So if I'm the sales leader, the value of revenue attribution, and many of our viewers are sales leader, and they spend time in marketing, but they're small M marketers. That's not what they know. Yeah. What's the value of revenue attribution for that card-carrying sales leader who's watching the show?
Oh, it's just as important for them as it is for, every leader in the C-suite. But when I think about the way that I collaborate with our head of sales, Eric Johnson, we're often having conversations about how do we get the right mix and the right balance of investment and expectation of our teams in terms of sales outbounding versus inbound, and marketing driving that pipeline versus what a maturing organization as we are, how much actual contribution our sales organization needs to be enabled to make and contribute to the overall team and the success of the business. And I think for both of us, the consistency in what our plan of record is and what we're expecting out of our teams, it's got to be an iterative thing. And it certainly happens on an annual basis. But when we look at that plan, you can't have success happening from a number or volume of opportunities or value of opportunities if it's not translating to the actual performance of the business and the actual bookings contribution. So when I look at that with Eric, often we're having that debate, and it's for him, he's got to have the same conversations I do with our CEO, and he and I have to be aligned, or else it's a finger pointing in both directions at us from our CEO saying, where are you guys not aligned? Why? And get it right. And I think,
can't I get a straight story?
Exactly.
So I was going to ask you, this probably leads into my next question, from the CEO's perspective. Because I've heard some CEOs, which is where I spend the lion's share of my personal time now, they'll say, I'll bring marketing and sales in the room for my debrief together, because I don't want to hear from marketing and hear from sales. I want to hear from both of them as I think about revenue. So a point of view relative to even how the evolution of the CEO and their mindset thinks about revenue attribution.
Yeah, I think the CEO is actually, most CEOs aren't calling it that per se. They may not be in the weeds to say that. They just want to see data, right? And they want to see consistent data, and they want a story to be told about the trends that are happening in their business that's influencing the true bottom line that they're looking at and top line growth. And so for them, I think there's a stat that is 54% of marketers believe their objectives are aligned with the broader business objectives. And I'm like, 54%, that's terrible. That's an abysmal amount. It should be 100%. I can't even imagine why yours wouldn't be. But the CEO, the most frustrating thing that a CEO can see, I think, is marketing celebrating success and showing performance and numbers and metrics that are, woohoo, we outperformed by 120%, but we only hit 95% of our revenue plan for the core. That's just unacceptable on every level, and CEOs shouldn't stand for that. There's got to be consistency in how we celebrate success and how we define success, and revenue attribution gives us that ability.
All right, so in this first segment, what should you take from both Sarah's conviction of her answer and the depth of it is that if you are a marketer, or if you're a sales leader, or if you're a chief revenue officer and you have both of them, if you're not purposely looking at revenue attribution and you don't have a methodology, you are behind. So, if I have now sufficiently scared you, let me take you to a happy place, because Sarah and I are going to talk about how you get there. So this next segment, Sarah, if I'm watching and I go, I need it. I get it. I'm there and I'm stuck. Like I'm a chocolate lab. Explain to me how do I get revenue attribution into my organization?
Well, you first got to understand, number one, what your CRM data even looks like, and how the quality and the health of that is foundational to everything. It just really is. And in parallel to that, how it synchronizes at least with if it's your marketing automation platform or your engagement platform, as we would like to say. In many cases, if it's Marketo, we certainly would be the best at that. But that alignment's critical. It's like the system alignment just as much as sales and marketing alignment. Those things are critical. And then it's just a conversation. And actually, there's other elements of this. The most basic and fundamental gotcha that is a deal breaker to get started is if you don't have the right talent on your team, you won't get there. So when I look at my team, I'm looking for analytically literate people. And what I mean is they can not just report on the data, but they can actually tell a story and show, interpret it, and actually use it to create the meaningful action plans that aren't just a one-hit wonder certainly not just once a year, not even once a quarter or once a month. I need iterative, constant conversations that are ongoing. And I think for us, that's a key step. And so the talent piece is actually fundamental and foundational to everything you do with revenue attribution.
Okay, very good. All right, so we've got talent, we've got a basic normalization relative to your CRM and what data that you have, and you've got the interpretation skills to tell a story. So now I'm walking through this outline, and there's multiple revenue attribution models that people can go after, Sarah. There's first touch, there's last touch, there's multi-touch, there's time decay. So can you educate us a little bit in terms of what you see, maybe what you've done, and what you advocate on behalf of for those that are maybe getting started?
Yeah, so I think just the fundamentals, getting the basics right with your data, as I mentioned, is critical. But when you look at different models, I would say don't jump in all the way. I think you have to start doing some experimentation and understanding also what your goals are. So if you're looking to fill, more new names into the funnel and you're trying to actually just generate top of the funnel activity, I think when you look at first touch and tracking that and trying to get your arms around that, it's a great first step to start to dive into revenue attribution. I think when you get into the more complex measurement of multi-touch, it goes a lot of different ways, and there's a lot of different systems and tools that can help you do that, ours being one of them. But when you look at that, I think that understanding what's happening mid-funnel and then also last touch, that is just before it becomes an opportunity, I think that is critical to a successful organization who is, I would say, moderately mature and has probably been, 6 to 12 months into investing in revenue attribution. But it's something that I think everybody should be headed toward, and that's just more of that advanced approach to revenue attribution.
So on the other end of the maturity scale, if we think about operations as sales ops, right? That's a more mature function than marketing ops.
Yep.
It's definitely a more mature function than this construct of revenue enablement and revenue operations that we've continued to see.
Yeah.
So is there a best practice or a recommendation you have relative to closing the loop with sales operations in its current state? Because most organizations have some form of sales ops.
They do, and we do as well. And so we have a marketing operations team and we have a sales operations team. And we even have these debates ongoing of, do we need a rev ops team? Do we need to, are there roles that overlap or alignment that needs to occur that is effectively executed through an org structure? And oftentimes org structure doesn't solve all of your problems or any of them. We actually are starting just by looking at how do we seat them closer together in our offices. I mean, basic things that are very fundamental, right? So you're not having to get up and go to another floor to talk to the head of sales ops or your counterpart. But I think alignment with them and their work and their investment, oftentimes, at least in our organization, is focused on our CRM core and that foundation. And so us aligning how we are, right now we're in the process of upgrading our own instance of Marketo. And when we look at the integration with our CRM system, it becomes very complicated to track a project every step of the way, and to do so in a way that's efficient, but also gets to the end result that's aligned with the business's overall objectives, and to never have a fallout, I guess, in that process. And so constant communication, and when I say constant, I mean daily. Like, we've debated, do we need to have daily stand-ups truly with the SOPs team and the MOPS team? I think we probably do. We haven't implemented that yet.
SOPs and MOPS.
But SOPs and MOPS.
Sales ops and marketing
yep,
ops.
SOPs and MOPS.
That.
Yes, you're more than welcome
Very
to.
Nice.
But now it's like, do we need ROPs? And so what does that look like? And how do we bring those teams together? It is that constant communication is key.
Yeah. Okay. So if I'm potentially stuck watching this saying, God, how do I start to implement revenue attribution? So I've got a CRM, but it's more of a repository of contact records and some old opportunities.
Yeah.
I've got some form of marketing automation. It's not an engagement platform, but I've got something. Yeah. I'm probably over-indexed in other MarTech solutions because every CMO I talk to feels like they've got too many.
Yeah.
If I'm that person, what's the right stage progression for implementing revenue attribution?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is definitely first touch. That's where you should go. If you're somebody who has some infrastructure set up and you already can do something, that's where you need to start measuring. There are other scenarios where I would say if you have the right commitment from the organization, the right amount of investment, it's like maybe for whatever reason you've been working in a legacy environment that has just not adopted marketing automation of any kind or MarTech, and your MarTech stack is weak at best and there's not been an intentional strategy. You may be a new CMO coming into a role, and you've got the budget and people know what they need as the end result, and this is part of that solution. There's sometimes where it's actually okay to say, let's rip the Band-Aid and let's go all in and let's go find the right partners. But it's not often just one partner. It's going to be a variety of partners that you've got to bring together to do that. We acquired Visible recently because we were seeing our customers who were needing this, and especially in the enterprise, larger businesses, they were having to go and work with both of us. We were integrated with Visible, but there's so much more we can do by bringing them to be a part of the family. And every CMO is looking at how they can plan, engage, and measure. Yeah. And so now with Visible as a part of our portfolio, we can do all three in one.
So let's 30 seconds just for those that don't know who Visible is and why you guys did that acquisition. Can you just explain it in Chocolate Lab terms, please?
Yes, well, maybe not, but they're advanced multi-touch attribution, okay? Yes. So basically every single time that we interact with a buyer throughout every stage of the funnel and every stage of their journey, Visible gives us that insight, whether it's a channel that's hosted through or integrated with Marketo or not. Visible brings us that insight and that data. And there are a lot of our customers and their customers, that TIPCO being one of them, that has had great success with them. And I think it's just the larger enterprises that have seen they can't just invest in a MarTech stack. They then have to invest equally as much often in the actual attribution platform and the part of the platform that can tell them how their money is being spent and how their dollars are driving returns for the business. And so, if you can't measure it, then, why spend it? I think that's where we've just got a lot of opportunities in industry to start to bring that full picture together and give CMOs the ability to tell a better and more compelling story. And that's what Visible brings to Marketo.
And as Sarah so aptly articulated what Visible does, I would tell you, as the world continues to move to customer experience design and creating not only great experiences but great outcomes, if you don't have your touch points mapped and you're not able to articulate by product line or by market segment what those touch points look like, it's very, very difficult for you to do any of the plan that Sarah has laid out. So relative to where to start, sort of in that step one, I agree with Sarah. First touch is a great place to start, but also this construct of customer touch points, we see so many companies struggling because they're guessing because they don't understand if there's 62 touch points or if there's 9 and it's high transaction, totally virtual, and there's really only 2 that matter. So I can direct my resources and direct my attention at those points of leverage in those touch points. All right, so last question. Sales alignment versus sales partnership. Like how do you work with sales, and then how do you recommend to your customers who are CMOs and they're serving their heads of sales, how do you make it happen? Because that's an age-old challenge and it's still not great.
It's still not great, and you're right. And we talk a lot about sales and marketing alignment. I think that's too cold of a word even. I do think partnership, and it's almost, I joke with my team about this, but I'm like, we need to have BFF necklaces that we split. I'm joking, but I'm not. It's like, I want to be the BFF. I want to be the ride or die marketing leader for the sales leader. And I want them to feel like they can text me at any moment, and they do. I guarantee when I walk out of the studio, I will have text from our head of commercial sales, enterprise sales, and our head of sales. Because it's great that they feel like there's an open door, obviously, to communicate and ask for things, but that's what I want them to feel like. And it's constant communication, and not just obviously at my level, but every level of my team. And so we've instituted just some new things like, it's basic stuff like adopt a quota carrier. So how does my marketing team start to engage with quota carrier?
Mops, adopt a quota carrier.
And programs where it's like, we're having a lot of fun. But there's things that you can do to show that you give a crap, And I think that they need to feel that we feel their pain. And I do think that it does go back to this reporting. It's like if I sit in a boardroom, they should be offended if I'm sitting there reporting out stats that marketing's doing its job. It's so great. Everything's rosy, and yet we don't hit our numbers. What am I doing if I'm not helping them and us collaborating together as partners to get to that end result? Because there is only one goal, and it should be the same goal. So.
All right, so put you on the spot.
Oh, no.
CMO for 6 months. What's been the biggest victory you've had, and what's been the biggest punch in the gut? The biggest, adversity you've dealt with? I think that the biggest punch in the gut has been it is actually sales and marketing alignment. I hate to start there, but I will say it's not that it's bad, right? It's just not good. And so I think that's where we've got so much opportunity as a business to move forward. And I think that it's part of this is growing pains, right? And Marketo has been forever, at least in its 10-year history, successful, extremely successful at small to medium business and growing into the mid-market. And now we're growing the enterprise segment. And that's where I would say, it's not that we're not aligned per se and we're communicating a lot. I just know in my gut and in the data that I'm seeing is that we could be doing more to grow an enterprise. Yes, it's art of the possible. And so I think that's one where it's not like it wasn't a big shock to me. It's just kind of a progression of, I want us to be in a better place. And so that's one that I'm constantly obsessing over. And then I would say that part of my almost bigger distraction, one of the bigger victories has been our conference, our annual conference that we just held. Gosh, how long has it been? It's been 3 weeks, I think. So it was in April and May of this year. And that event was massive. It was 7,000 people, over 7,000 people attended. And, candidly, I'd never put on an event of that size or scale before. And I would say the team pulls and rallies together, the sales team to get people in the door, to get customers in, our customer support team, getting our customers there to feel like they're a part of that experience.
we brought more people than we ever have into that event. And I had no idea if we could pull it off, and we went into this entire year in the last 6 months of trying to move toward an experience that would be valuable for the attendee and really a place where they could engage, but also that would actually drive pipeline.
Yeah.
And the results we're seeing with our announcement of Visible, I mean, it's 3x what we thought it would be going into the event, and it's continuing to grow, and I'm seeing those numbers come in, and I love it. And I would say for me, that's been certainly the biggest victory so far, but that's a kind of a one point in time, and now there's so much more to do and so much more work to do now that that's behind us for the year at least. I can't wait to just sink my teeth into all the other areas.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
And I've got to ask while we're wrapping up, I'm always curious, what was your first introduction, or how did you hear about SBI?
Oh gosh, actually Jill Rowley brought me here. So I have been born and raised in Dallas and did not know you guys were based here, but I had seen the content, it had been shared with me, and I'm like, oh, this is actually quite, the depth of what you guys do is so powerful. And I was kind of jealous, like I want to bring my team here. Yeah. And she goes, well, you know what, let's go check out the studio. They're in Dallas, and it was right in my backyard. And so she brought me here and got engaged. Yeah, so it's been awesome.
So the takeaway I would give there, and I actually didn't even know what the answer was to that question, you got to give yourself a chance to get lucky. So we've been sharing content for a long, long time. We're early in content marketing. Somebody like Sarah, who's smack dab in the type of person that we want to engage with. And there you go. We had some brand rub-off. So, Sarah, congratulations on a great first 6 months.
Thanks
everything
so
you're doing, and appreciate you stopping by and coming to visit us and sharing this with our network.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Yes. And everybody else, I want to thank you for tuning in. And all your continued support. You have a choice where you put your eyes and your ears, and the fact that you would engage with us for 25 minutes today, I greatly appreciate it. So as always, until next time, I wish you good luck as you try and make your number.
This has been the SBI Podcast. For more information on the studio, SBI's Executive Briefing Center, our team, or to schedule a workshop, please visit salesbenchmarkindex.com.